Look at the last year of your life. Not what you hoped would happen, what actually happened. The things that moved, the things that didn't, the problems that arrived, and where they came from. This is the uncarved. There is a question most people never ask directly. Not because they haven't considered it, because they are afraid of what an honest answer would require. Why is this happening to me? Not as a lament, not as a protest to the universe, as a precise, unsentimental inquiry. Where did this come from? What set it in motion? And, most importantly, what does it have to do with me? Most people carry a standing answer they have never examined. Things happen to them. Life happens to them. Other people happen to them. Circumstances happen to them. And somewhere in that passivity, so familiar it has become invisible, is a story. The story that you are primarily the receiver of your life, not the author of it. A still pond does not create waves. If nothing is moving in your life, if the same year keeps repeating, if the same conversations circle back, if you look at the last 5 years and cannot point to a single thing you chose deliberately to risk, that is not peace. It is stagnation dressed as stability. And stagnation has its own problems. They are just quieter problems, slower, less dramatic, the kind that don't announce themselves as crises, but as a low-grade sense that something is being wasted, that the version of your life you are actually living is a smaller version than the one that was possible. The problems of the still life are not the problems of a person who fell. They are the problems of a person who never jumped. And those problems have a particular kind of weight because they are made entirely of absence. The conversation you didn't have, the move you didn't make, the version of yourself you didn't become because becoming it required accepting that something might go wrong. There is a story in the Zhuangzi that has been turning in my mind while thinking about this. Confucius was traveling near a great gorge where a cataract fell from a height so enormous that the water at the bottom churned in rapids so violent that no fish or turtle could survive in them. And Confucius saw something that stopped him completely. A man in the water, not at the edge of it, in the center of it, being spun and thrown by the current, churned under, swallowed by the white water. Confucius thought he was watching a man die. He sent his students to pull the body out. A few hundred paces downstream, the man walked out of the water, singing, hair loose, unhurried, entirely at ease. Confucius went to him. He said, "I thought you were a spirit. I see you are a man. What is your way in the water?" And the man answered simply, "I have no special way. I enter with the whirlpool and come out where the water rises. I follow the nature of the water. I do nothing against it of myself. That is how I can be in it without being destroyed by it. The man didn't avoid the rapids. He went in. And because he went in, because he had been going in long enough to know how the water moved, he could move with it in a way that the man on the bank never could. The man on the bank is safe. He is also dry. He has never learned anything the river could teach. The person whose life is marked by the problems of movement, by the risks that didn't pay out, the ventures that cost more than expected, the relationships changed by honesty, the opportunities that created new exposure. That person is in the water. And the problems of being in the water are real. They are not small. They can be brutal. But they are a different category of problem than the problems of the bank. One is the friction of living. The other is the slow erosion of not living. Jean-Paul Sartre made an observation that most people spend considerable energy trying to avoid. He said, "We are condemned to be free." Not free in the sense of having many options. Free in the sense that there is no escape from choosing. Not choosing is a choice. Waiting is a choice. Staying where you are is a choice. The consequences of not choosing are as real as the consequences of choosing. They are just easier to disown. Because you can point to the absence of action and say, "I didn't do anything," and that is technically true. But the life you are living, the shape of it, the texture of it, the specific quality of what keeps happening to you, that is not arriving from nowhere. It is arriving from the sum of every choice you have made and not made, including the choices you made by standing still. Sartre called the refusal to acknowledge this bad faith. Not a moral failing, a specific kind of dishonesty. The dishonesty of pretending that you are not the author of the life you are reading. Now, here is where this gets precise. Because not all problems that arrive in a life are the consequence of choice. Some are, some aren't. And the work, the honest, uncomfortable work, is learning to tell the difference. Viktor Frankl spent 3 years in Nazi concentration camps. He lost his wife, his parents, his brother. He lost the manuscript of his life's work. He did not choose any of that. But what he observed, in himself and in the people around him, was that even inside conditions no one had chosen, there remained a space. A narrow space, but real, between what happened and what you did with it. He called it the last human freedom. The freedom to choose your attitude toward what cannot be changed. Not as optimism, not as performance, as the fundamental refusal to let circumstances be the final word on who you are. The distinction matters. There are things in your life that arrived from outside, from the decisions of others, from circumstance, from forces that had nothing to do with what you chose. And there are things in your life that arrived from inside, from what you did and what you refused to do. Frankl's insight is that even in the first category, the question of authorship does not disappear. It simply changes shape. You did not choose the condition. You are still choosing what to do inside it. There is a passage in the Tao Te Ching, chapter 16, where Lao Tzu writes, "Return to the root. That is called stillness. Stillness is called returning to one's destiny." He is not talking about the stillness of inaction. He is talking about something that can only be found in movement. The tree in the storm does not resist the wind. It bends. Its roots hold not because they are rigid, but because they are deep. The return to root is not the refusal to move. It is the capacity to move without losing what you are. The man in the waterfall did not lose himself in the rapids. He entered them so fully that the distinction between himself and the water temporarily ceased. That is not the stillness of the bank. That is a different kind of stillness. The stillness of something that knows what it is, even inside the chaos. A question to carry into the rest of your day. Not as accusation, not as pressure, as a genuine invitation to see clearly. Look at the problems in your life right now. The ones that are pressing on you. The ones that keep you up. The ones you have been carrying for longer than you want to admit. And ask, without rushing to the answer, where did these come from? If they came from movement, from something you decided to build, to risk, to say, to attempt, then these are not problems. They are the cost of being alive in the fullest sense of that word. You are in the water. The water is doing what water does, and the only question is whether you will fight the current or learn to move with it. There is no space for complaint here, only for the quiet gratitude of someone who chose to jump and is learning in real time how to swim. If they came from stillness, from something you didn't choose, a direction you refused to take, a decision you kept deferring while time made it for you, then these are also not the universe being arbitrary. They are information, precise, unsentimental information about the cost of the bank. And that information is not a punishment. It is an invitation to ask seriously for perhaps the first time, what would it mean to actually get in the water? And if you still don't know which of these is yours, if you are genuinely uncertain whether what is pressing on you came from moving or from standing still, then that uncertainty is itself the answer. Because a person who has truly moved knows it. They feel it in the body, in the specific, intimate knowledge of what they chose and what it cost. The uncertainty that remains after honest reflection is almost always the uncertainty of someone who has been waiting for a safer moment to begin. The man in the rapids didn't emerge unharmed because the water was gentle. He emerged unharmed because he had been in it long enough to know how it moved. You learn that only one way. Once you are in, once you have felt what it actually costs to move at the level you are capable of, something shifts. Not because the problems disappear, because you stop experiencing them as things that are happening to you. They become the texture of the life you chose to live, the water, the current, the proof that you are moving. Until next time, move slowly. That is enough.